Everyone, and welcome back to Bridging the Gap. Make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe. My name is Alvin. I lead right on most issues, and I'll be representing the Republican side.
My name is Luke. I lean left on most issues, and I'll be representing the Democratic side. Hey guys, so in this video, we're going to be going over the RFK campaign, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He was running for president as a third party, and he just recently dropped out.
Yeah, so we're back at college now, so the videos will start coming out again. We're a little late on the news, but RFK Jr. has had a hell of a campaign, but it has finally ended, and he has finished by suspending his campaign, withdrawing his candidacy in all the swing states, and endorsing Donald Trump, the Republican nominee for president, which we'll talk about today. Now, RFK did not always run as an independent. He started out running as a Democrat for president against Joe Biden, who was going to be the Democrat nominee. Now is
Hmm.
no longer the Democrat nominee, of course. But back in 2023, at the time of dropping out, RFK was polling around 15% Democratic primary, a pretty strong number for, someone against the incumbent sitting president.
Yeah.
Of course, Biden was weighed down by low approval even among his own party, people thinking that he should not be the nominee due to age, which eventually did, change the nominee because of that. But yeah, so Kennedy had a pretty decent campaign, but he eventually decided he would drop out after being unable to do much damage to Biden in the polls. It was clear that Biden was going to sweep the primaries eventually, so RFK decided to drop out and run as an independent.
Yes. So on to RFK's independent run now. RFK, he did pretty good for a third party candidate. I think like historically, I think when you compare it to recent third parties, like his polling was pretty good. Like he was getting like 10%, which is pretty good for a third party. Um, and he was taking a decent chunk from both Biden and Trump. Um, he- uh, RFK was an environmental lawyer, so he has pretty like liberal like climate policies, and he's more on the left on lots of issues. But when it comes to distrust for government, I believe abortion rights, and also obviously the vaccine and COVID restrictions. He was like an anti-vaxxer. He was more right-leaning, so he took some from Trump on that end. So yeah, like he did take a decent chunk of the vote until recently with Harris jumping into the race. It kind of did significant damage to his campaign. If you want to elaborate more on that.
Yeah, I mean, I will fact check you on the abortion one because he did say in a podcast that he was for pro-choice for the entire term of pregnancy,
Oh, really? I didn't know
saying
that.
that
Okay.
until in May he said full term, then he later restricted that to until fetal viability, so a more moderate stance that more Americans would agree with. Now, other than that, though, yes, he has been more right-leaning on health things, just not on abortion. Um, Now, with everything else though, let's actually dive into the issues. And RFK's poll has really gone down ever since Biden dropped out of the race. Um, in July, before Biden dropped out, Kennedy was doing very well, especially post-debate. A lot of Democrats, obviously, they're very big Trump haters. They don't want to vote for Trump now. They look to RFK. Um, and Kennedy was polling at 12.3% and was polling from more from Biden at this point in time. And he was doing very well. Um, and it was weird though, because RFK voters were not very strongly supportive of their candidate, unlike Trump voters and Harris voters. They were 60 to 65% strongly supportive of their candidate compared to
Yeah.
40% for Biden, which is, pretty low for a president. I know a lot of Democrats that would have probably said they're moderately, maybe even including you, Luke. And, on the Kennedy side, he was sitting there under 20% strongly support. A lot of them were probably about to go switch to Trump or Biden eventually. I think a lot of them were eventually going to go home to the Democrats, but that's
Yeah.
besides the point. once Harris came into the race, a lot of people were more confident in moving their vote over to Harris. Now let's look at this. Percentage of Kennedy supporters who have a favorable and unfavorable look at either candidate. Most are double haters, right? But there's more favorable Harris. So a lot of them would be more likely to vote for Harris. Now, this is where I want to get into the meat and potatoes of all this because with this RFK endorsement, I'm thinking that a larger portion of this favorable towards both and unfavorable towards both side are going to vote for Trump. There's some people, anecdotally that I've talked to that were genuine RFK supporters. They were going to vote for RFK fully, but they have now switched the vote to Trump only due
Hmm.
to the endorsement. Now, however, I would say that these favorable Harris voters are probably just going to go home to Harris. But net overall, I think this is going to help Trump based off of that endorsement. We're going to look at these numbers here. You want to talk about these?
Yeah. Okay. So first things first, we should look at the five-way general here. If you
Five
could
way.
scroll down, I believe there is like an
Sure.
overtime chart for that. So yeah, you see that there. After Kamala entered the race and Biden dropped out, RFK did see a significant dip in support. And I think that was a lot of Democrats coming home from the RFK campaign. I think RFK was genuinely like so up there. Like he was at 10%. He got such a chunk of the vote because there's a lot of people who didn't like Biden and they didn't like Trump. I think Harris kind of broke that dichotomy of two old people running uh, running for president. So that allowed some of these Kennedy voters to come to Harris, and that's why Harris's vote share has surpassed Trump, and Kennedy's has dipped a bit. Now with Kennedy dropping out, I have a feeling that a lot. You are right. What you were saying before. A lot of these remaining Kennedy supporters are people who would back Trump. The reason I say this is because if you compare the five-way race with all the third-party candidates versus the 1v1 race between Harris and Trump, Harris is doing better in the five-way than she is in the two-way. She's up two in the five-way, and she's up 1.5 in the two-way according to RCP's averages. So she gains zero point 0.5 on Trump just by the fact that there are so many third party candidates taking votes from Trump. And I think Kennedy getting out does help Trump to that extent.
Yeah, there's also one more factor to this, which is that people that still do not vote for Harris and Trump now only have two third-party candidates to vote for, and those are Cornel West and Jill Stein. And Jill Stein, which is going to be on a lot more ballots, is from the Green Party. She has that party infrastructure to get on a lot more ballots that independents do not have. And Jill Stein is obviously even to the left of Kamala Harris on a lot of issues.
Yes.
That's where the Green Party stands. And so, potentially progressives, Palestine people that really care about the Biden-Harris record on Israel and the Middle East, they're now not even going to have Kennedy vote for. And mainly the third party polls are going to be fully for Stein and West. I'm not sure what's going on with Chase Oliver and the Libertarian Party right now,
Yeah.
but it seems as though Jill Stein is going to be probably the leading third party candidate for now
Yeah.
that
I think that is
Kennedy is
correct.
out. And unless Chase Oliver does something, I'm not sure. But Harris is going to be probably losing voters to that because she's now the leading third party option. She's going to be pushing to get to 5%, whatever. Um, and yes, what you said is true. Harris at 48.4 in the two-way. And you look here, she's at 46.4. So she gets 2% of the third parties, which, 1.4% of that is probably from Stein and West. Only a tiny chunk of that is going to be from Kennedy. And the rest of that is going to be Kennedy support for Trump. 44.4 jumps all the way to 46.9. It's 2.5% of Kennedy voters that would probably go to Trump, and another probably 2.5%, I would say at least 60% are now going to vote for Trump based off of this endorsement. That's going to boost Trump another percent or two and potentially even out this race a little more. And if only Jill Stein is on the ballot and Cornel West, then this is going to be a little blend where Harris loses percent to Stein and West, where she's maybe at 48, 47 and a half, while Trump is now gaining to 47 and a half, 48%, and making this a dead heat with that endorsement if everything goes to how the endorsement rolls out. So this could be a major boost for Trump. We'll have to see if he gets a bump in the polling now that there's no more five-way polls. It's now going to be four-way polls, I guess, and two-way polls. We're going to see how the head-to-head
Yeah.
changes. And I also want to talk about one more thing real quick before you get in, whatever you want to say, is the Arizona issue, which you might have noticed that Arizona is the place where RFK entered his campaign. And Arizona is where Trump held his event right after RFK ended his campaign. And I think that is for a very specific reason. And it's interesting. RFK used a super PAC in Arizona to get 110,000 signatures to get on the ballot. Just for reference, in 2020, there were approximately 3.3 million votes in the state of Arizona. And the election here was decided by, look at it, 11,000 votes, a
Yeah.
little 11,000 votes. And he got 110,000 people that were passionate about his campaign enough. Yes, he's a super PAC. Yes, it's a little sketchy, but he got 110,000 people to submit a signature for him. And if the election in 2020 was decided by 11,000 votes, that would be massive for Kennedy, for Trump, I should say. If Kennedy's signatures even translated a little on net to Trump, that could have gotten him over the
I
finish line in Arizona.
I happen to do. I think you're overestimating like what a signature for a campaign means because I saw RFK like campaign people and like like outside supermarkets just asking random people and getting them to sign on to his campaign because people don't really know him. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess you can interpret that as like 110,000 is a lot, and I'm sure a significant chunk are Patch supporters. But there is I imagine there's also a lot of people who are just randomly picked up and asked like, oh, can you sign this? Um, yeah, I'm interested to see how this vote translates to Trump. I'm kind of skeptical it all goes to Trump because these are people who actively decided not to choose between Biden and Trump and now Harris and Trump. And I think the only reason like a decent chunk of his vote share was lost to Harris is because one of those candidates got out. Biden got out. So that's why like uh, around maybe I would say 30 to 40% of the RFK voters went to Harris. Now it's Harris versus Trump. These 5% of voters left that are in RFK's column, they don't want to vote for either. So I think I'm sure more of them will go to Trump than to Harris because of the RFK endorsement. But how that breaks down, I'm still interested to see. I think we'll see it as more polling comes out, but I don't think we could be too certain yet.
Okay. Now let's go on to how Kennedy might affect the Trump presidency because just today, breaking news showed that Trump would put RFK and former Democrat Tulsi Gabbard, who famously is now part of Trump's debate team after ending Harris's campaign in 2019, is now on Trump's transition team, which they used to be Democrats, of course, and like we said before, they have some Democrat stances on issues like RFK and abortion, and now they're on the Trump transition team, which means if Trump wins his second term, Kennedy is going to be in the decision room for who gets into power, and honestly, he might
Yeah.
even become a person in the cabinet.
Yeah, that's a little worrying considering I don't know. Like I've heard some talk of him becoming the new head of the Department of Health. Like that's not very good. Like Health and Human Services. Considering like he's like a vaccine, an anti-vax conspiracy theorist. He said Wi-Fi causes brain cancer. Like he has had some crazy takes that are frankly kind of worrying. And I think even having him in the transition position is not ideal because that means he's going to be in charge of choosing lots of heads for like the CDC and other committees like that have to do with health in the government. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's not ideal personally, but I guess obviously as an olive branch, like politically, it could be a good move for Trump because it's an olive branch to RFK supporters and people who genuinely support RFK. But I think just for the sake of the country and having like healthcare experts run um government health, I think this is very bad.
Well, I do not have many thoughts on this, honestly. I don't really know how much the transition team really matters that much, but I guess if Kennedy becomes the HHS secretary, we'll be talking about it for sure. Because right now I just don't have that many thoughts on this. I mean, obviously, I think his stance
No
on
passionate
vaccines.
defense for RFK.
No, no, I couldn't really care less about RFK. He's not really someone that I need to defend. I don't really like him in general. Obviously I would disagree on his position on
Yeah.
abortion for instance, and a lot of things like his vaccine stances are weird too. Like the whole autism and vaccines thing is pretty low IQ in my opinion. I think that the reason of all these autism on the rise and everything like that recently in mental health disorders is really from women pushing off giving birth until later and later. And
Yeah, that is
that's
part of the
really
reason. You're
that
right.
I think that is the major reason. I think that's the primary reason and not vaccines. Like, yeah, we've been getting vaccines. Like that really does not give kids autism. There's no proof for that. But there
Yeah.
is proof of weaker genetics when you are
Yeah.
giving birth later and later. We're marrying later and
That
later,
is
having
correct.
kids later and later, and that is scientific, and that's the real reason. It's not vaccines, Mr. RFK. Until you can give me a good study on that, I'm not going to believe
Yeah,
you.
having
So
a climate lawyer go into health is probably not the best idea, but we'll see.
yeah, I mean, we'll see. I don't, I don't think it'll be that bad. I don't think, unless it's the Secretary of State, which is, obviously extremely important. I don't think the other secretaries on the cabinet really do that much, but we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see on that. And if he does become the HHS secretary, we'll be talking about it a lot. So yeah, that's about it. Kennedy
Hmm.
post-mortem here, all the way from a Democrat primary challenger to a Trump endorsement. Maybe he planned this all along to get a cabinet spot, running against Biden, running against Harris, and then finally endorsing Trump. Maybe he just planned this all along. Maybe he's extremely big brain, just wants a job in November. Not sure. But that's RFK for you guys. Him and his brain worm. Um, yeah. So leave
Yeah.
a like on this video down below. Comment down below what you think about this endorsement. How much is it going to help Trump in your opinion? Um, Subscribe to the channel. We'll be probably releasing a video soon on the paths to 270 for both Trump and Harris. And we're going to be releasing a video on our prediction for September soon because it's almost September. It's crazy. 2 months to election. Early voting starts in a week or two. It's gonna get going really, really fast. So subscribe, ring the bell so you don't miss any of our new videos, and share this video with your family and friends. Thanks for watching.
See you guys.